on Friday afternoon, just the same as we did last week. Then the topic was culture and active culture and how we can join the different activities. And I guess you also managed to get some practical information from the last week's lecture. Today, the title is Enough Theory, Discovering Practical Art-Based Methods to Foster the Development of Self-Expression, Communication, and Social Skills. Of course, there will be a little bit of theory, as always, as we are at the academic level of exchanging information and also of interaction. So therefore, I will put some theoretical background to teaching through art, what I have found in my research for today's lecture for you, to make this lecture interesting, I hope. And I also will share some practical component. So I will include some elements and examples of how we can use art in our classes at all levels that we teach, as I guess you also teach teachers. So as you provide information on higher levels of the hierarchy, so this means that your students will teach others in the future. I hope that I'm right with this. And then I will also sum up and include some more practical information for you personally, what you can do to improve your self-expression, to improve your communication and social skills. Looking into the background of today's lecture and meeting, I have found a term which is an abbreviation, which is called VUCA. V standing for volatile, U for uncertain, C for complex, and A for ambiguous. In fact, this is the term, the VUCA is a term used in the military life, not so much in business and society, but in military actions. So it describes, I think, the world we are living right now. We are living our lives, both personal and professional lives, in the world which is volatile, which means it is very unstable, it is changing, and it is changing with the speed that we sometimes cannot follow in some situations. For example, the stock markets can be volatile because they respond so quickly to the situation during the pandemic times. This also goes for the weather. The weather is also unstable and it's simply unpredictable in many ways. So the situation is not maybe so much complicated, but it is just unstable. So that's the first letter of VUCA, the term that I have introduced. The second letter is U. U stands for uncertainty. So we don't have enough knowledge right now, as we are all facing the same level of risk and danger. We don't have enough knowledge, and we cannot have, and we don't have quite a lot of impact on our actions. It refers to many events where we don't have enough information, and those events can also be volatile. So we are not certain what our action cause, what will be the result of what we do. So it's quite difficult to plan, to achieve our goals, because we cannot predict what will happen next. The third letter of the VUCA is C, complex. Complex is where the large number of interactions leads to the overload of information, as we follow the pattern of the human brain, but we cannot predict people's behavior. In many cases, the behaviors cannot be followed by any kind of system or any kind of planning or any kind of control. And the last letter of the VUCA is ambiguous. When something is ambiguous, means it's not clear and it's very difficult to interpret such a situation. So the situation may be obscure, incomplete, sometimes contradictory, and situations are quite open to even more than one interpretation. And there is this lack of clarity and any sense. There is also the context, which cannot be followed or traced in the ambiguous situations. I think we are all in this phase. We have been discussing the situation and role of teachers many times before. And what can we do to somehow change and improve the situation? What kind of methods can we use? I guess you are experts in the fields and you know the methods of art, as you are related to the field of art and music, I guess. So we employ many art-based methods, and this is nothing new. The art-based methods were introduced into education, I guess, over 30 or even 40 years ago. And today, those methods of using art in business and in education are quite common. So that there is this inherent potential of art-based methodology and the approaches that meet the unknown in the educational system. Basing our teaching and learning on art is always, I think, linking the emotions and sensations to cognitive understanding. So I guess we feel the link. There is this link between information, between art and cognitive understanding. And these all make up and relate to pedagogy. These learning methods are sometimes experimental and sometimes are explanatory in the learning process, and they correspond with the principles of vocational pedagogy. So vocational pedagogy and didactics is quite often based on practical and experiential impact of teaching. These approaches are not to create art, but these approaches and sometimes maybe not even educate new artists, but they give us they shed the light on how art can influence our brains, our perception, and our cognitive processes. There are several strategies that may be used in art-based learning. One of the strategies is called Empirical Strategy, and the fundaments of empiricism were laid and defined by English philosophers, as we know the names of Francis Bacon and John Locke. So that goes back to the 17th and 18th centuries. They both believed that the human acquisition of knowledge is just the perception of reality, which is surrounding man through the senses. And the main source of knowledge is experience. Since we become to know the world, and we acquire the knowledge through our senses. And while we experience and absorb the facts and phenomena of reality, we are also obliged by those facts and phenomena to realize the connections which are based on them. We should also, in this strategy, we should employ several steps of perception and of understanding. The first is the collection of factual material. So it's the recognition of basic concepts of the studied phenomenon in concrete situations, observation, and recognition and focus on typical characteristics arising from those situations. For example, viewing a communicative situation in a short film together with the students at the beginning of the lesson. Another step in empiricism is conceptualization, which is a definition of a new concept as a result of observing facts and phenomena. For example, the definition and naming of the recognized phenomenon. This is the strategy of cooperation. The next step we employ is the repetition and identification. So it's the categorization of the studied and recognized phenomena and concepts according to new, higher levels of abstraction. And that is not only to grasp the material, but it's also to try to repeat this information. Step number 4 is the application and practice. The practical application of the recognized acquired concepts and rules and laws is the aim of turning the application of knowledge into some kind of skill. Then it's the assessment and evaluation, which at the academic life always go at the very, very end, where the learner's knowledge has been shaped and it has to be tested through some kind of the learning process or system, some kind of ability system, which exists in all universities. This is how it goes, that we perceive the information, experience it, and then the evaluation phase is the final assessment, is the successful completion of this process and of the steps that I mentioned. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was an upsurge in research on learning and acquisition. Complex learning theories were born then. And one of the most important psychological figures is Piaget, who considered activity in a psychological sense, which comprises psychological operations and actions, and also they are the key condition of development of mental abilities. In Piaget's theory, he uncovers the similarities between the material and intellectual activities as the presumable identities of development, and that he describes the mental operations and the developmental stages. I think that was quite of the beginning was a bit of theory and introduction. Now we are in the field of art, so I think we should also mention the aesthetic transfers. Art is part of aesthetics, and this method of aesthetic transfer also ensures that the reproduction and art education do not convey only information, but it's also the aesthetic component of art, and they have a very high influence on us. In the method of aesthetic transfer, there is this presentation phase of chosen works of art. There is the time to allow the student or the observer to understand the artwork and to have some kind of interaction between the viewer, the observer, and the piece of artwork, and whereby the sensory stimuli is tied directly to our memories, our experiences, emotions, and associations. I guess this is just a scientific way of giving a definition to what we feel when we watch and we look at a very famous painting, like let's say Mona Lisa, for example. So I feel this is the level of aesthetic transfer. I think in some moments we can be even carried away emotionally by that. There is a I don't remember the exact name, but they use it in Florence. People go to Florence in Italy and they visit many museums where the pieces of art are just unaccountable. And they have this aesthetic power they feel from art in Florence, that sometimes they lose senses because the impact was so heavy on them. I remember 2 years ago, I visited the art galleries in Vienna, and there are also many beautiful art. Vienna is full of famous art galleries. And that was the time when Caravaggio was displayed, a very famous painter. And I could feel that was this transfer of emotions, and I could look at people around me. That was a very huge impression of art. So I guess this is the very simple example of what we call the aesthetic transfer. And this interaction that we feel is a very personal matter, and it differs from person to person. What can move you may not move your partner or your friend or your students. But we need to, as teachers, as academics, we need to set up the appropriate conditions for art. So when we also should give the viewers the freedom of expressing their opinions without judging them, as the opinions of viewers, especially the younger ones, are they show just a personal perspective and the personal associations they make. And when they want to express opinion, I think this is part of experiencing art, that we want to express what we have seen, what we have perceived, and this will enhance our experience as a human being. So I think especially children can react at a very emotional level, but I think it's the feature of all human beings that we express the reaction at some kind of intellectual level that we are at. There are many types of reactions, and we have to accept them. The experienced artwork can lead to some artistic reaction, and this is also the very individual solution of a child, of a student. And I think that we have to be realistic that this cannot be somehow lost in the process of aesthetic transfer. So the art-based learning methods were introduced into business. I think that's from what I have researched for you. It was in 1990s, and it was a new way to adapt and change the present time syllabi that were obligatory, and they were binding in universities. So the application of art and creative processes as learning tools was really a response of the rapidly accelerating rates of the change in the workplace and the social network complexity, and also the global marketplace. As I said, the art-based learning is linked with emotions and sensations, and this happens at the cognitive level. And these are related to pedagogy. And those learning methods are very often experimental, and they include some kind of exploratory learning processes. They correspond with principles of vocational pedagogy and vocational didactics. And what is the purpose of art-based learning? It is not to create art or educate students. This is to renew and develop competences of the educational life. As we know that art is a very powerful tool, and it can help shape the minds of students, of the young ones. And simply put, there are many benefits of using art. It's teaching new skills. It's the introduction of non-threatening environment to children and young adults. It may also be fun, hands-on activities, being very creative, and rather than working hard with theory. Because it is not perceived very often as a challenge. Art activities can develop in our students many positive feelings and emotions. They may help build up the confidence. They very often encourage empathy, accept differences, and they allow the free expression, creativity, and the problem-solving skills. So the question is, do we need to be art professionals to teach through art? And I guess not. We can be just creative teachers. I myself started as a teacher of English. Right now I do many different things, mostly are related to administration, adult education, e-learning, and also most of my time is the international programs. But I started as a language teacher, and I started teaching with the very young pupils. They were like 6, 7, 8 years old. So that was quite a good lesson that I had for quite a few years. So I'm not really very much talented in art as such, but I had to use quite many methods of art or related to art, because they helped quite often to ease emotions. And I think this is one of the reasons that we use art. It may help ease emotions, especially with the young ones. So as the first part of the lecture is enough theory, now I'm going to give you some examples, some ways how we can teach those emotional skills, what kind of art we can use and how to use it. So for example, we can, the first example is we can ask our students to make a collage of themselves. This collage is the art of using old magazines, old newspapers, and students can cut out different elements. They can create pictures with even words and letters, and they can draw or present by that way and method. They can present the feelings, emotions, they can make a comment, or they can present themselves. Using technology, because I mentioned old newspapers and magazines, and maybe the question is that people don't read magazines anymore, or maybe they read very rarely. Well, all of us have cell phones, smartphones. So we can work on cell phones a lot, and the cell phones are really very creative with art. We can make, the students can make a selfie. So when they have selfies displayed on the phones, you can somehow arrange all the phones on the floor and take a picture of all the selfies together, which will be it will look like a nice picture. It will look like a presentation of the class, and you can place it somewhere. You can place it maybe on a Facebook group or on Instagram, or it may be just part of another project. Like if students prepare selfies, it's also important the hashtags that they use. As you know, Instagram, and probably most of you use it, students may join the hashtag related to them. It's like somebody will use the hashtag of, I don't know, hardworking, intelligent, loving, shy, gentle. I think through expressions in hashtags, we also show our personality, which may be sometimes hidden because we don't want to express it openly. And I guess with cell phones and Facebook and also Instagram, now also TikTok, those activities with technology should not be rejected. They should be treated with the possibility of opening a new way of expression, and because we have to accept it, we have to accept technology, and we cannot be stuck with the world. We have to follow it, even though we may feel that it takes up our time and it's maybe a waste of time sometimes, but we cannot escape from the world we are living right now. So I guess with the cell phones, you can create a lot of art. You can even draw on your phone, even with your finger. And you can have a competition of pictures that students create. So technology allows to create many pieces of art which will not be possible in the normal sphere, in normal life. And I also guess that the online learning imposed on us right now in the pandemic times also stresses that technology is a relief. It's assistance, it's helpful, and it's something that we, even if we judge it in a negative way, and sometimes not accept fully, but we have to adopt some elements of technology in our classroom. Maybe going back to more traditional ways, we can explore emotions of our students and of us with different colors. We can have a task for the student of expressing how they feel on a given day, and they may use, let's say, 2 or 3 colors to express it. We know that the basic connotation with the color of red is anger. So when somebody, or black means the people are either terrified, scared, or just angry as well. So those emotions related to colors may also help us in the classroom, and also may be helpful to identify the feelings. Some people don't want to talk about them openly. They may just use the colors to express what they feel very deep down. Something which is also more creative, and it helps to build the emotional strength, is making a gratitude box. Gratitude is the feeling that when you are thankful for something, when you want to express how you feel in a positive way, and how you appreciate your life, or simple things in your life. We can be grateful for the weather, we can be grateful for our working life, for our family, our cat, our dogs, for anything. We can prepare with our students a gratitude box where they can, we meet them in the morning, the first lesson in the classroom, we can ask them to write on a small piece of paper one thing that they are grateful for on that given day, and they can put it into the classroom gratitude box to help them express the feelings and emotions. And this can be anonymous, as many of those pieces of communication through art may become anonymous, because if we relate information so much personally, I guess we may go into a direction of becoming a psychologist, a psychiatrist, for which we may not have qualifications to go into people's souls and analyze them. We just want to use it on a bit lighter way to help them express the feelings, and very often through that help them lower stress, lower depression, which they may feel, as we were also discussing this during many lectures, that these are very common feelings of students right now in the very uneasy times. Starting with art, I think, should be done very early, like the early childhood. And we have the kindergarten education in Poland. Now it has become very commercialized, I guess, all over Europe. we have those Montessori kindergartens. Do you have Montessori education in Ukraine as well? Do you know Montessori? Yes. Yes, and Montessori system, well, I'm not an expert on Montessori so much, but I know it's teaching through skills, through work, also communication. The people in kindergartens, there are not many toys, like regular toys, but children learn through experience, and they use a lot of art there. There is quite a lot of freedom in those kindergartens, and the children are encouraged, as I can openly say, to do what they just want. I have my cousin's son is in such a Montessori kindergarten, and his parents tell me what the system is, that this is the system of very big freedom and being very open, not imposing on a child what he or she is supposed to do. So I know that there is a lot of arts and crafts in such a schooling system. So there is a lot of music-based activities. They may be passive or active. It's a lot of role-playing, and children have special costumes which they can wear any day they want. It's not only like in traditional kindergarten, children wear costumes because of, I don't know, Christmas or Easter or some national holidays. No, in Montessori education, if they want to have a costume on a day, they can do that. And there is quite a lot of drama and theater in this education, and also visual arts and crafts. I guess with theater, it's also quite popular in not only in Montessori education. The theater and drama is very often used in teaching and education of many people, not only the young ones. In our city, in Влоцлавеку, there are, I think, 2 or 3 amateur theater circles or groups or associations, as I may say. One is for the young ones, for pupils of primary schools, from primary schools. And there is also one for the teenagers, and there is one for adults. So there are the form of theater, I think, is the art which can be very often used as a helpful resource of pretending to be in different roles, and also to express those emotions. And I guess it's also part of the therapeutical process in many unconventional ways. Have the rehabilitation of the disabled, especially the mentally disabled people. So the theater is one of the core elements. So we can see art acts in all levels of education, and it acts in many spheres of mental ability, as I may say. So there's a different connection for a child, and it's different connection and the result for a mentally disabled person. But art education has many benefits, and those benefits are beyond the obvious. They, I think, should be part of any educational programs. As this is quite a lot of creativity involved, it encourages many simple skills, and those skills are sharing and caring for other people, self-expression, being more confident, working on our empathy. So participating in art can help children learn about emotional regulation, as I may say, in general. And this is the good way to learn to assist with the fine motor skills, like the skills we need for writing, and spatial awareness, which is built up in the early ages. And the research has shown that being involved in art is beneficial to social and emotional development. We have the control of the feelings and emotions, and I think this is quite importance to work on those areas right now. So all of those elements make up the aesthetic education, and this aesthetic education is regaining touch with the process of learning and through making something new. And something new is introduced to a medium that has never been known. And then we work together with art, and across our curriculum, we receive this as a result. We receive the stronger awareness and the appreciation of what we have achieved in our lives. So I think this is the power of art, which can transform children and teachers. The partnership may become stronger. The challenge of taking risks is higher. There's this more excitement in learning because the learning process becomes more varied. There's more self-esteem that increases through creation, and the exploration of relationship and combining emotions and our sensory perspective. These are our highlights. From the practical point of view, I mentioned some examples. So I mentioned the gratitude box, or we can, instead of the gratitude box, we can have a gratitude journal. We can also have something like a mental box. A mental box is, I was discussing it with Dr. Miziołek at some other lecture. Mental box is something like when and we can also do it as a piece of art education. The mental box is something where we put our bad emotions written down on paper, and we close the box because we may forget, and then we may forget about the bad emotions because they are there, and they are there away from us, and we can somehow feel better. This is also like fighting with depression. Some practical solution that we may have related to art is work, as I mentioned, working with the phone, but we can also record ourselves. We can record our voice. We can read our books and record them on the phone, and we can use those recordings for the classroom, for making presentations for ourselves. This will be true for language teachers. As I mentioned, this is my experience. Being a language teacher gives you another perspective on using pieces of art and communication and technology. So we have become also more creative as all educators and teachers because of the unusual times, as I call those times the new normal. This is the pandemic situation. So we have been challenged as educators globally. And so it's not very easy right now. We have to focus on our students, and we have to be the role models for them. We have to guide them through the difficult times. We need to face the society, which is not easy. Well, that's, I think, a topic for another lecture, how to face society again. We can do it through art. We can help our emotions being expressed. We can improve our social skills. Facing society and getting out of the online world is one of I think, the big topics that we could also discuss in the future. The social anxiety which we feel right now when we are so much confined in contexts almost like in prisons, brings on people a lot of anxiety, which is uneasiness. So I think art has quite a lot to help express and fight with depression. It may be a way of therapy to many of our students to help them work on the bad emotions and to analyze them and to name them. This week we had one lecture that was Wednesday, but it was to another audience with Dr. Miziołek, and I asked him what is, as he is a therapist and mentor, I asked him what is the new map of our life in the future that he sees, and how can we create the easy map of life, our future. And his response was that we should talk as much as we can with others, that we should talk to our partners, we should talk to our students, ask them, not only see the students as machines who have to follow some kind of pattern of information, but we have to regain trust again, as we should practice some sports, which may also help, or maybe even use some mental health applications, which may help us reduce the stress. Just to make a connection, I would like to stress there is quite a lot of importance on our natural abilities. Those natural abilities which we have are the source of our success. And if we want to be successful in any kind of education, if it's related to art, if it's practical, if it's more vocational or theoretical, all of those natural abilities are the ground. As I mentioned so many times today, the pandemic situation, which influences our ability to perceive information and to transfer information into more practical components. I guess the natural abilities are the base of success. How talented you are, and if you are very talented, it will be easier for you to learn the things and improve your life. Of course, not everyone is gifted so much, and not everyone has those natural abilities. So then the other end of scale will be hard work. So being a hardworking person, which can have better results in academic life, which is it's a perfect combination, as we know, but probably we don't have many students who have both natural abilities and who are hardworking. So we need, as teachers, to set the goals in front of our students. We need to guide them. And I think the greater the goal is, the better results we may achieve. As a language teacher, I often saw that and experienced that most of my pupils, my students, were terrified during let's say, the first lesson of presenting them with lots of information on a given topic, like lots of vocabulary on a given topic. But then with time, I made them feel easier. But this is one of the theories, that you put on your students more than they can face. It's like saying in English that there's more on the plate than they can eat. And sometimes it makes them terrified, but it's a way of encouraging them to work, to feel better, to understand, to process. Because we should always be a step ahead. We should provide more than they can consume. And if we just provide the amount of the exact portion of information they can digest at a time, it will never be a successful kind of a didactic process. I think I'm not discovering anything new. This is one of the pedagogical theories. This is called N+1. So the amount of information you put should be greater, with the one element bigger than what your students can consume. So we should optimize the learning process. We should optimize it just control the abilities of our students, but we should not be demotivating, and we should not be making them ineffective. There is also the very big role of environment in learning, and it's also in the learning strategies of art. So as I said, this is the learning environment of very simple thing. If we are not distracted, if we feel encouraged in a way, if we feel that there's something valuable that we use. And we as teachers may use very different techniques. The technique of mixing different topics, of mixing art and putting art. I think art can be put into all kinds of teaching strategies. As you know from your own experience, that we can build this information and this process of teaching through art into any kind of academic process and any kind of level. That's how I feel. I feel it works, and it's a very good technique that requires maybe quite a lot of preparation on the teacher's side. But once you prepare your material, this forms a base. This forms a base. You can use it in your files. You can use it for the future, and you can use many different ways of, as I said, technological stuff that can help students to digest information. But we cannot be spoon feeding students. To spoon feed students, I mean to do something for them. So if we encourage our learners, then we will have better results in our educational process, which is not easy, because it's quite often related to the natural abilities or to the effort that students make. And we should also remember that there is this learner's autonomy, much talked about right now. It is not a new notion, but the learner's autonomy has been discussed over the last decade or so. When we talk about the process of individualization in language education, it is called the STT, the student talking time. The situation when the student is encouraged to express his or her feelings. So we should stop spoon feeding to students. We should encourage them, even through art or any kind of other accustomed to them way. We should help them develop, and we should help them grow, which is sometimes very difficult to do, because when students grow, they may sometimes even outgrow us, and some teachers may not be very satisfied with this, but this is, I think, our role, to implement the autonomy, to increase students' abilities, to help them start early, and to help them to become more encouraged and to be more creative. Talking about creativity is something like very so much related to our topic today. I suggest, as we are meeting on Friday and we have an event ahead of us, I suggest that you do something related to art, which is not so usual, and then you can send me some kind of relation of that, or maybe a picture. You can easily find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, as you know my name. So you can send those photos to me over the messenger if you want, no problem. And try to do something related to art, but in an unusual way. And on my Facebook account, I will, I think, place on Sunday this weekend, I will place some pictures of something that I'm going to do tomorrow, and it will be related to art, but it will be quite unusual. And I'm not going to tell you now what it's going to be exactly, but it's going to be a process of something related to stress relief, to didactics, also to education, which all of you can do, but it will be something really unusual and different. So I would like to see some of your related to art activities sent to me over the weekend. And I hope you will enjoy this activity of doing something the other way around. Maybe that's the way of modern education related to arts, doing something the other way around. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that. Are there any questions?
Zia, any question?
No questions.
Are there any questions? No questions.
No.
No. So the lecture is recorded. You can easily see it on YouTube after our meeting. And I hope you will enjoy your weekend and see you during our next lecture and internship. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Very much for beautiful lecture.
Thank you.
Bardzo dziękuję, pani Joanna, bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Дуже дякуємо усім присутнім, хто долучився до англомовної лекції. І я так думаю, що ми відчули певну різницю, так, у ментальному устрої і взагалі у житті, що існує навіть з Польщею України. І багато було повчально, хоча багато в чому ми співпадаємо. Зокрема, так, у якихось більш нових формах навчання дітей, починаючи з дитячих садочків і донині. Але чим вище піднімаємося ми за освітою, тим більшою є відмінність, між іншим. Здається мені. Так, на дитячому рівні ще більше спільності, а на рівні вищої освіти суттєво більш відмінностей взагалі різних ставлень до процесу навчання. Але це вже таке, awareness, він є awareness для всіх, і це дуже важливо, тому що дійсно усвідомлення – це головна якість, яку потрібно формувати на всіх етапах розвитку і освітньої підготовки, і без цієї властивості, без цього квалю ніколи не можна обійтись. Отже, я ще раз дуже дякую вам від імені Joanny, пані Joanny Skiba, яка дуже люб'язна кожного року вона доєднується до нас, і в неї точно є, ну, так мовити, своя магістральна лінія розвитку думок про сутність культури та активну культурну діяльність людини. Тому ми вже, так мовити, долучені до її теорії, до її теоретичних засад, і я сподіваюся, що майбутнього року ми знову з нею зустрінемось і кожного року будемо все краще і краще розуміти, про що ж нам розповідає пані Joanna. Це точно.
Олександра Іванівна, скажіть, будь ласка, щодо круглого столу. Щодо круглого столу.
Анна Васильівна, дивіться, нас ще чекає вівторок. У вівторок у нас о 3-й годині прекрасна лекція Ірини Степанівни Драч.
Ми це знаємо, пам'ятаємо, але до круглого столу хочемо підготуватися.
А до круглого столу, власне, круглий стіл – це ж взагалі така повністю вільна форма. Я так беру на себе сміливість на початку круглого столу запропонувати дещо стосовно теми, даної теми круглого столу, а саме людина у діалозі з часом, мистецтво, музику у діалозі з часом. Тобто час – наш справжній герой, куди діться від цього. Дійсно, ми завжди у діалозі з часом. Або він над нами панує, або ми якось думаємо, що ми його все ж таки опанували на деякий час. Але, чи так, чи інакше, але ми весь час існуємо у часі. Пробачте вже мені таку тавтологію парадоксальну. І тому я вирішила, що це буде, так мовити, головною темою наших роздумів. І, як ви бачите, пані Joanna Skiba також весь час міркує про сучасність, тобто про суголосність часу, про те, що відбувається саме сьогодні, на чому спроможні сьогодні, які виклики часу існують сьогодні і до чого вони нас підштовхують. Отже, це і буде такою магістральною темою нашого круглого столу. Це одне. Інше, за бажаннями, абсолютно все, що стосується питань музичної освіти, музикознавства, музичного мистецтва, взагалі культури, звичайно, все, що бажається обговорити і якось виробити спільну точку зору, спільну думку стосовно цього, а це будь ласка. І найостанніше, звичайно, прозвучали лекції, прозвучали теми, задані спікерами. І, можливо, ще є питання за тими лекціями. Можливо, щось не договорили, не дообговорювали тоді, і щось хочете сказати стосовно предметного наповнення цих лекцій, взагалі питань, що вони ставили. Особливо, якщо хтось взяв і, не дай Боже, переслухав ці лекції, якщо є такі ентузіасти величезні. А навіть якщо ні, то цікаво, що залишилось в пам'яті, між іншим, що запам'ятовується, коли певний час проходить, знову ж таки час, але щось таке головне, що зачепило, воно ж залишається. Так? І воно випливає, і дуже цікаво за цим спостерігати, що саме залишається, як то кажуть про освіту, що залишається, коли все пізно вже забулося, коли воно вже пішло, але ж не все пішло, щось залишається. Отже, я думаю, 3 такі головні компоненти, ну і все. Я так думаю, нам вистачить.
Дякую, Олександра Іванівна, зрозумів.
Так, я ще раз всім дуже дякую, гарного вечора і до зустрічі у вівторок о 15.
Щиро дякуємо. Дякуємо.
Всім гарного уікенду, будь ласка.
Добре, дякуємо.
Дякую.
До побачення.